The golden palace of Emperor Madzenus stood at the center of New Rama, a city built on the red soil of Mars. For 300 years, the Empire had ruled this planet with an iron fist. The descendants of old Earth Romans had carried their traditions across the stars. They wore purple robes, spoke in ancient Latin, and believed themselves to be the masters of all creation. Their emperor sat upon a throne made of pure gold, decorated with jewels stolen from 100 conquered worlds. But on this day, the throne room was not filled with the usual sounds of celebration. Instead, there was silence. The kind of silence that comes before a storm. 12 warriors stood at the entrance of the throne room. Their skin was the color of deep ocean water, a brilliant shade of blue that seemed to glow under the artificial lights. Each one of them stood over 7 feet tall. Their bodies were covered in strange markings that moved like living things across their flesh. They wore no armor, carried no visible weapons, and yet every guard in the room trembled at the sight of them. These were the Azurians, the last survivors of a planet called HFY. The Romans had destroyed their world 50 years ago. They had burned the forests, poisoned the waters, and enslaved the people. But they had made one mistake. They had not killed everyone. The leader of the Azurians stepped forward. His name was Draken, and he had been a child when the Romans came to his world. He remembered the screams of his mother as soldiers dragged her away. He remembered the smell of burning flesh as his village turned to ash. He had spent 50 years preparing for this moment. Emperor Megazentis looked down from his golden throne with disgust. He was a fat man with small eyes and a cruel smile. He had never seen battle, never felt pain, and never known fear. His entire life had been one of luxury and power. "So these are the famous Azurians," the emperor said, his voice dripping with contempt. "I thought your kind was extinct. It seems my grandfather's soldiers were not thorough enough." Draken did not respond immediately. He simply looked around the throne room, taking note of every guard, every exit, and every shadow. His mind was calculating, planning, and preparing. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm and steady. "Your grandfather killed my people. Your father continued the genocide. And you have spent your reign celebrating our extinction. But we are still here, Emperor. We have always been here, watching, waiting, learning." The emperor laughed, and his courtiers laughed with him. It was a nervous sound, hollow and forced. The guards gripped their weapons tighter, sensing that something was wrong. "You come into my palace with 12 warriors and think you can threaten me?" Maxentus said. "I have 10,000 soldiers in this city alone. I have warships that can destroy planets. What do you have? Blue skin and empty threats?" Draken smiled, and it was the most terrifying thing anyone in that room had ever seen. It was not the smile of a man who was afraid. It was the smile of a predator who had finally cornered its prey. "We have something far more powerful than your ships or soldiers," Draken said. "We have patience. We have memory. And we have justice." He raised his hand, and the markings on his skin began to glow with an intense white light. The other Azurians did the same. The air in the throne room became thick and heavy, charged with energy that made the hair on everyone's neck stand up. "What is this sorcery?" the emperor demanded, rising from his throne. "Guards, kill them!" The guards rushed forward, their weapons raised. They were well-trained soldiers, veterans of many campaigns. But they had never faced anything like the Azurians. Draken moved like water, flowing around the first attack and striking with his open palm. The force of the blow sent the guard flying across the room, crashing into a marble pillar so hard that it cracked. The other Azurians moved with the same fluid grace, their bodies becoming weapons of incredible power. The battle lasted less than a minute. When it was over, every guard in the throne room lay unconscious on the floor. Not dead, just unconscious. The Azurians did not believe in unnecessary killing. They were not like the Romans. Emperor Madzenus had retreated to his throne, his face pale with fear. He had never imagined that his life could be in danger. He had never thought that anyone would dare to challenge his power. "You cannot do this," he said, his voice shaking. "The other planets will not stand for it. They will send their fleets. They will burn this city to the ground." Draken walked slowly toward the throne, his eyes never leaving the Emperor's face. With each step, the temperature in the room seemed to rise. The golden throne began to glow with heat, the metal becoming soft and pliable. "The other planets?" Draken said. "Do you mean the planets your empire has conquered and oppressed? The planets whose people work as slaves in your mines and factories? Those planets?" He stopped at the base of the throne, looking up at the terrified Emperor. The markings on his skin were now burning with white fire, and the throne was beginning to melt. "Let me tell you something about those planets, Emperor. For the past 50 years, my people have been traveling among them. We have been teaching them, training them, preparing them. At this very moment, uprisings are taking place on every world in your empire. Your soldiers are being overwhelmed. Your ships are being captured. Your governors are being arrested." The Emperor's eyes widened in horror. He tried to stand, but the throne had become too hot. The gold was now liquid, flowing down the steps like a river of fire. Flames erupted from the base, spreading across the platform and engulfing the ancient symbol of Roman power. And through it all, the Azurians stood unfazed. The fire did not touch them. The heat did not bother them. They simply watched as the throne of their enemy burned. "This is impossible," the Emperor whispered. "How could you plan something like this? How could we not know?" Draken's expression softened slightly. There was no pleasure in his eyes, no satisfaction in watching his enemy suffer, only a deep, ancient sadness. "Because you never saw us as a threat," he said. "Because you believed your own lies about our inferiority. Because you were so convinced of your own power that you never imagined anyone could take it from you. That has always been the weakness of empires. They cannot see their own end until it is too late." The flames had now spread to the walls of the throne room. Priceless tapestries depicting Roman victories went up in smoke. Statues of past emperors cracked and crumbled in the heat. The ceiling began to collapse, raining debris down upon the marble floor. Draken grabbed the Emperor by his robe and pulled him away from the burning throne. Despite everything, he was not going to let this man die in the fire. "What are you going to do with me?" Maxenus asked, too shocked to resist. "You will stand trial," Draken said. "Every crime your family has committed will be brought into the light. Every victim will have their story told. Every world you have conquered will have a voice in deciding your fate. That is the Azurian way. We do not believe in vengeance without justice." The Emperor laughed bitterly. "Justice? You have just destroyed everything my ancestors built. You have unleashed chaos across the galaxy. How is that justice?" Draken looked at him with eyes that had seen too much suffering, eyes that had watched his entire civilization burn, eyes that had spent 50 years dreaming of this moment. "Your ancestors built their empire on the bones of innocent people," he said. "They called it civilization, but it was just organized cruelty. What we are doing today is not destruction. It is liberation. It is giving people the chance to build something better." He led the Emperor out of the burning throne room, followed by his 11 companions. Outside, the streets of New Rama were filled with people. Some were running in panic, but many more were standing still, watching the palace burn with expressions of hope on their faces. These were the workers, the servants, the lowest classes of Roman society. They were the descendants of conquered peoples, brought to Mars as slaves and never given their freedom. For them, the burning throne was not a tragedy. It was a promise. A young woman stepped forward from the crowd. She had dark skin and bright eyes, and she wore the simple clothes of a kitchen worker, but she held herself with the dignity of a queen. "Is it true?" she asked Draken. "Is the empire really falling?" Draken looked at her and saw the same hunger for freedom that had driven his own people for 50 years. He saw the hope that had kept them alive through generations of oppression. "The old empire is dying," he said. "But what comes next is up to you. We did not come here to replace one tyrant with another. We came here to give you a choice. The Azurians will help anyone who wants to build a better future. But we will not rule over you. That is not our way." The young woman nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. Around her, others were gathering, their fear giving way to something stronger. It was the same feeling that had sustained the Azurians through their darkest days. It was the feeling that the universe could be changed, that justice was possible, that the powerful could be brought down by the united will of the oppressed. Draken watched as the Roman palace collapsed in on itself, sending a pillar of flame high into the Martian sky. It was a sight that would be seen on every screen across the galaxy, a symbol that the old order was over. He thought about his mother, about his village, about all the people who had died, so that this moment could happen. He wished they could see it. He wished they could know that their sacrifice had not been in vain. But he also knew that the hard work was just beginning. Destroying an empire was easy compared to building something new. The galaxy would need leaders who believed in cooperation rather than conquest, in freedom rather than control, in the dignity of all beings rather than the supremacy of one species. As the sun set over New Roma, painting the sky in shades of red and gold, Draken made a silent promise to his ancestors. He would not let their dream die. He would not let the galaxy fall back into darkness. He would work tirelessly, for as long as it took, to create the world they had always imagined. The throne had burned, the emperor had fallen, and the blue-skinned warriors stood unfazed, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Their long journey was finally over, but their true purpose was just beginning. They would rebuild what the empire had destroyed. They would heal what the empire had broken. And they would prove once and for all that the strength of a people was not measured by their weapons or their wealth, but by their courage, their compassion, and their unshakable commitment to justice. The age of empires was over. The age of freedom had begun.